Article 4, Forbiddiment from enslavement, or prohibition of slavery and forced labor. Does include forced labor then, with the scope of enslavement. Professional work is not included in being enslaved, meaning, for instance, being a dentist or working as a lawyer forced into pro bono does not give you the right to say that you're being enslaved. Those are professions which you chose to become educated in and specialized within, meaning there were certain obligations that you implicated yourself into. Yes. Yeah, just a good thing to know. There were some people who tried to be a smartass, it didn't work. Exemption for military conscription laws can differ in margin of appreciation depending on time of needs, meaning crisis versus non-crisis conscription. Now, so far, I don't think there's been any case of crises ascertaining to war being used in conscription laws, but I know that there are case laws about this. But it should be known the margin of appreciation is pretty big here. This convention doesn't have an army. It doesn't even have any consequences economically. It's totally based on being receivable from both ends. And if you're going into the status of war and preparation through forced conscription, you're probably out of the ECHR by that point. For instance, Russia. Now, we know that the main reason they were taken out was because of Ukraine, but I'll say if the West didn't decide to make it political and just merely used the applications of their articles instead of kicking Russia out, they could have made it a point of how things should not be done in every aspect. They could have had case laws that would have gone into how Russia forced men into war. It's a huge issue in Russia. That's, if I've understood correctly, part of the reason why the Soviet Union fell is due to the movement of mothers and parents that refused to keep on letting their sons be conscripted. Usually the spirit of motherhood has been very strong within Russian culture, as anyone well read about culture as a phenomenon should know. I'm getting out of hand. Just saying, it could have been interesting to understand how they would have commented on these things. However, most logically, they don't want to comment on anything. This should be a president which has no opinionated facts surrounding it. The court doesn't want to tell a country what they should do in war. That's NATO and partly the EU. Moving on. So it's Celikadin v. France. Celikadin v. France. Togolese national girl brought at 15 through a tourist visa. She was living with a host family. Ended up being enslaved and forced to work 12 to 15 hour shifts, I believe, every day for several years. Eventually, the state didn't have the proper laws set in place to protect her, and she ended up being without any rights. This is similar to the case of Söderman v. Sweden, anyone who's Swedish. This part only is similar from the fact that there weren't any laws protecting people from being discriminated in this way, or being tortured in this way, or being enslaved in this way then in this case. It's a horrific case, and it should be known this isn't something that you should automatically blame France or the convention for not having known about as a situation. Or actually, you should blame France. Bringing in someone on a national tourist visa and then allowing them to be tortured for years, enslaved, a 15-year-old girl, and then you're letting it come up to this point. I mean, there have been cases in other countries. I know that in Sweden, it hasn't been the case about human rights, but about money. There have been cases where courts have gone above and beyond. Let's say their own national version of competence, meaning a court, if they really wanted to, could effectively create their own laws by extensive application of thinking, which usually comes down to just saying as a court, hey, just think logically, this should be fine. But it's usually not that simple. It's about rule of law, Rechtsstaat, and the fact that things have to go through the parliament because they are being given through the right of the people. If a court can do this, we're screwed. Anyways, that's probably why they let it come up to the convention. I'm sure France already knew this was going to happen, but they just had to follow the procedures and let it happen a bit embarrassingly. The Russian-Cypriot sex trafficking case. Good to know, Cyprus, I think it's the Turkish side, but it could also be the Greek side. It's a country that you could call, in the terms of bank, where Ireland is famous for being ambiguous, So like Ireland with banks, and then you have Switzerland with taxes. Prohibition of slavery and forced labor. No one shall be held in slavery or servitude. No one shall be required to perform forced or compulsory labor. And then 3, for the purpose of this article, the term forced or compulsory labor shall not include A, any work required to be done in the ordinary course of detention imposed according to the provisions of Article 5 of this convention, or during conditional release from such detention, meaning they allow people who are in detentions to be enslaved. Anyone in the comments that wants to correct me, please do, but I'm pretty sure this is the same way the US excuses enslavement through prison systems. Any service of a military character, so back to the conscription, and then any service exacted in the case of an emergency or calamity threatening the life or well-being of the community. Well-being of the community then could be the dentist or the pro bono. Any work or service which forms part of our normal civic obligations, that as well. That's it. Thank you.